asking me, would you like to be the speaker at LA5? And I said, absolutely, of course I would. What's LA5? And then I started to read the background of the club and the organization and the work that you're doing in the community and the names of the members. And let me tell you, I was a little bit intimidated by what I had agreed to. So when I tell you that I am honored and I am humbled to be here, I sincerely mean it. As Todd mentioned, I am a journalist, so what does that mean? It means I'm professional, right? I'm stoic. I'm flammable. I'm the voice of reason when the whole world seems to be falling apart. I anchor midday shows for CBS 2 and KCAL. We are the largest local news organization in the second largest city in the United States. I've covered some big stories. The mass shooting at the Colorado movie theater. I was on the air live. And I had to tell the viewers the story of how a man draped his body over his date to save her life. I was live on the air when I got the word in my ear that there had been some sort of explosion at the finish line of the Boston Marathon, and the words that an 8-year-old boy was dead. And I steadied my voice, tried not to think of my own child, and just read the words off the teleprompter. And yes, I was live on the anchor desk last Monday morning, 6:25 a.m. when the 4.4 earthquake hit. And I know you've looked at YouTube, and I know you've looked at Facebook, and no, I was not the anchor who drove up the dance. Not me. So in August 2011, when the phone rang in my cubicle, broadcast center in Studio City, thought I could handle just about anything, right? But it was my doctor on the phone. Hello, Sandra, she said. I have your pathology report. There was no, can you talk? I have some bad news. Are you with someone who can help you? What she would say would rock my world more than any earthquake. I have your pathology report, and the mass is malignant. Malignant, benign. I couldn't even make sense of it, because when you get that phone call, you certainly don't expect it. Most days, I can make sense of the stock market. I know how to find Kazakhstan, Crimea on the map, the bickering in Congress, but I couldn't make sense of benign or malignant. So my doctor answered with just 4 words. You have breast cancer. I couldn't believe it. I'm a non-smoker. I've been a vegetarian for about 30 years. I gladly pick an organic spinach salad over an In-N-Out burger. I'm an avid workout enthusiast, a woman in my 40s, and I have breast cancer. I would later learn that 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 8. I didn't know that then, but I know it now. Now, I don't remember how that conversation with my doctor ended, but I do remember just a few moments later going into my news director's office because I was supposed to be on live TV in just about 20 minutes, and by now that makeup that was so expertly applied by my makeup artist just a few hours before was muddy and messy and running down my face in tears. So I was sent home. And at home, I told my husband, now my husband's a big guy. He's 6'6". He's a former college oarsman. And at that moment, he was the only thing holding me up in the world. Over the next few days, I would often think, why me? And why now? It wasn't a complaint. It wasn't a worry. It was more of a curiosity. I'm trained to ask questions. And I wanted to know, why did the cells in my body go awry? As I said, I tried to lead a clean and healthy life. And that's when I found out that there are 2 big risks for getting breast cancer. 2. The first one is being a woman. And the second one is getting older. Scary, isn't it? All right, I'm a take charge kind of girl, get things done. So very quickly I learned that I had to assemble the best medical team I could find, and I was blessed that I live in the city of Los Angeles. And I found my way to Dr. Christy Funk at the Pink Lotus Breast Center in Beverly Hills. Christy's a remarkable woman, and you might have seen her on TV before. She looks like a supermodel. She's an Ivy League grad, but she kind of talks like your BFF. And over the next few days, through all the MRIs and the meetings and the bone scans and the CT scans, she would send me text messages, things that said, "Wow, bone scan clear. You're a rock star. Have a sip of champagne tonight." In those first few days, I realized that it was not going to be easy, but I would survive with the proper treatment. And I know that not everyone has the same blessing, and so I feel compelled to share my story. 2 years after my diagnosis, I was in Dr. Funk's office in Beverly Hills, and she said, "Sandra, oh my gosh, I have some big news." And I said, "What?" I was going to scoop all the other journalists in town. I was so excited. And she said, "Oh, I have big news, but I can't tell you." I said, "What do you mean you can't tell me? You have to tell me." And she said, "No, I really can't." Well, a few days later, the whole world would know Dr. Christy Funk's name, the same surgeon who performed the preventative double mastectomy on humanitarian and actress Angelina Jolie. As I said, I was blessed. My cancer was detected early, but I want you to know there was no lump. There was just a shadow on a mammogram. A routine mammogram saved my life. Dr. Funk often counsels her patients, and she will tell you, early detection, routine mammograms are the difference between stage 1 and stage 4. They are the difference between a lumpectomy and a mastectomy, the difference between radiation and chemotherapy, and yes, early detection sometimes is the difference between life and death. In October of the year I was diagnosed, just before I was about to begin 7.5 weeks of daily radiation treatments, I decided it might be a good thing to get away for a little while before all that began. And so my husband and I took a trip to New Orleans. We wanted to eat some gumbo, yeah. Drink a few hurricanes and kind of just forget about everything for a while as much as we could. So we popped into the Hard Rock Cafe on Bourbon Street, and the clerk working in the retail store in the Hard Rock was kind of scary. This guy was about 6 feet 14 inches tall. He had a pierced lip, he had a ring through his nose, he had bright red eyebrows, and they matched his bright red nose. I was scared. He's the kind of guy that most of us might cross the street if we were to meet up with him late at night. But my husband started talking to him. It was October. It was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and he started telling this very stranger my story, and I thought, why me? Why now? "I'm George," he said. "I'm a runner, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to run a marathon in your honor every week until you are cured, and then I'm coming to LA, and we're going to run a half marathon together." Well, I'm not a runner, and I was a little bit scared. I gave him my business card, and I thought, yeah, right, I'll never hear from this guy again. But just a few days later, the emails started coming with pictures of Mohawk men holding up a sign at the end of a race with my name on it, Sandra Mitchell. We had only met for just a split moment, and yet he was reaching out to me. He had run 26.2 miles in my honor. And I quickly realized that this is not just my story now, this is the story of so many people who in the fight of their life find the will to go on, simply because there's so much beauty in the world, if you just open up to it. 38 doses of radiation, you know what, I was pretty burned, and I was burned out. But those emails never stopped coming. St. Louis, Detroit, Orlando, Madrid. He really was running a marathon every week in my honor. And I was touched. But I also knew, at some point, I just going to have to run a half marathon. And again, I thought, why me? Why now? Well, from LA, Louisiana to LA, California, those emails never stopped. Be strong. Start running. Just one block at a time. You know what happened next, of course. In October, almost 1 year to the day that George and I met for that split second, he came to LA for the rock and roll half marathon. Okay, I ran it, not the whole way. My way was pretty tough, it was uphill. But when we crossed the finish line, George and I were holding hands. And I realized that this was a symbol of all the things that cancer had brought into my life. Pain, yes, and fear, but also beauty and strength and friendship. And the will to survive and to reach out to your support system and to find it, even in someone with a red mohawk. I often think of my life as AC and BC, or BC and AC, before cancer and after cancer. And I have to tell you, the after cancer life, it's bigger and it's better. For the most part, I try to give up the shoulds, and I know a lot of you deal with that, the things you should do, the people you should see, the commitments you should get to. But when you get cancer, you realize there's a lot of things in your life that are just taking up space and time and energy. After being diagnosed with cancer, a lot of people make some really drastic changes in their life. They may get divorced, they buy a red convertible, change careers maybe. And I have to tell you, the process of fighting cancer did change my life in a profound way. Because when you almost die, you suddenly get very serious about living. It's the scariest thing I've ever gone through. But it also forced me to ask, why me and why now? Now, I know that I am not going to be the researcher who finds a cure for cancer. I'm not going to be the surgeon who saves lives. And I certainly don't have the finances to start a fancy foundation. I can't do those things. But I can do something. And so whenever I speak to a corporate audience or esteemed guests like yourselves, I pass around an envelope and I ask everybody to put in $1. That's it, $1. And Todd's going to pass the envelope for us, and I ask you to put in $1. And all of the money goes to Susan G. Komen or to a family in Los Angeles or in our immediate vicinity now dealing with a breast cancer diagnosis. Because I know that $1 is not going to make a difference in your budget. But to a family struggling to pay for medical treatment, it certainly will make a difference. Together we can do that. There are just too many days that I get emails or phone calls from friends and families, and yes, even strangers who reach out to me at the TV station and tell me about a woman who is just beginning her journey. Here's what I really want to share with you. You don't have to get cancer to live this way, because I believe that everybody has some sort of cancer in their life. Maybe it's a bad marriage. Maybe it's a teenager. Maybe it's an addiction. And maybe your cancer doesn't show up